All you, buddy.
What is going on, everybody? And welcome to another podcast live here in Amherst, Ohio. I am your host tonight, Aaron, with my co-host JR. JR, man, welcome back to Ohio.
Yeah, it's been a great welcome back. 30-degree weather. I'm ready to go back. It was like 74 degrees in Charlotte today.
Well, you could definitely take me back with you because I am sick and tired of this cold. So,
I mean, I could, but there's another problem. Her
oh yeah,
name being Deanna.
I'm kind of married, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad she's not here for that. She is putting the little one down, but it's great to have you up here. It's been last time I saw you really was in December. So welcome, buddy, and welcome back, everybody. Kind of an exciting day, really for me personally, and for a lot of college hoops fans. Last year we really didn't get this because of the pandemic and it started, but we are here today and Selection Sunday. We finally made it. I feel like the past 3 weeks that's all we've really kind of discussed with seating and stuff like that, but we'll wait no more. We finally have everything that we need. Brackets came out at 6. We saw the 4 regions. Technically, they're still going to do the West, the East, the South, and the Midwest, but everything will be played in Indy. So with that being said, JR, I know we kind of saw the bracket, live. And did you feel like there's any snubs, and any teams you felt like deserved to be in, but eventually didn't make the tournament?
Not particularly. I think everyone that made it had their respectable resumes, and there were a few close ones. I can't remember who it was. I remember seeing one team on the first 4 out that did have a better record than I think it was Michigan State. They had a better record than, but Michigan State did have a solid ending to their season, and so that's probably what bumped them into the tournament.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I know a lot of people were kind of questioning Michigan State, but if everyone forgets, they did beat Ohio State at home, and then they also did beat Michigan, and I think that's what eventually got them into in the playing games essentially. So I guess with that being said, I guess for me, I was a little bit surprised. So Wichita State did lose their conference tournament, and usually with being a mid-major, if you don't win your conference tournament, you're not going to get into the tournament, regardless if you won the regular season or not. So I was kind of surprised Wichita State kind of snuck in there. I know everyone was kind of talking about Louisville. I think Louisville kind of played themselves out. I know they had to go. I know they missed a few weeks due to COVID and all that other stuff, and they came out, they weren't the same team. They're missing a few players, whether it be to COVID or to an actual injury. And then they lost their first game to Duke, and I think that kind of just I wouldn't necessarily solidify them being out, but they definitely had to sweat it out. Another team I was kind of surprised, but not at the same time, would be Syracuse, because their resume was kind of hit or miss. They are a very, very streaky team. I just think essentially I do think the committee did get it right, and I am more curious to see, as we come on, later in the week, how these teams play. You got Drake and Wichita State, which Drake was undefeated until they lost a few games in their conference, and they got bounced early. I believe they lost in the semifinals. So I'm going to be curious to see who wins that game, because that winner between Wichita State and Drake is eventually going to play USC. Besides that, tonight we're really just going to be talking about the bracket in itself. I guess we go over, the Cavs did lose, and they're losing tonight pretty big again as well. So the Cavs are coming out of break are going to be 0 for 2. So, but tonight is going to be all about the bracket. We are going to start off here in what they call the West region. And before we kind of get into that, is your 4 number 1 seeds is Gonzaga is your overall, Baylor, and then you got Illinois and Michigan. I have no complaints there. Now, I would have been curious if Ohio State would have won to see what they would have done with Ohio State and Michigan, because I think Michigan without Livers, there's a possible stress fracture which could possibly end his season. They looked out of sync, and I'll dive into them here in a little bit, but I think that might be the number one seed. That's probably gonna be the weakest, maybe outside of Baylor, because they finally came back to play and they really haven't played a game in essentially over 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Michigan is the weakest. I mean, other than that, I have no complaints with the number one seeds. What about you?
No, I mean, they all deserve it. Like you said, if Ohio State had won, there was probably a chance that they would take the 1 seed in the East region, but that didn't happen. They fought hard. They came back from a big deficit, and yeah, I'm okay with the number 1 seeds.
All right, so let's dig in. Like I said, they're still going to break it off into regions, even though they're playing in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, let's go to the West bracket. Again, your overall seed is Gonzaga, and then you have Iowa as your 2, Kansas as your 3, and Virginia as your 4. And real quick, before we came on live, Bill Self said that he is going to be missing 3 players. That is to be determined. I haven't read anything who's not going to be playing, but Kansas is missing 3 players, which I don't think is going to really factor in on if they get past the first weekend, meaning, they get through rounds 1 and 2 and go to the Sweet 16. But I don't know if you heard that. That's what I read as soon as we came live. I thought I was kind of interested. Gonzaga, Norfolk, Appalachian State. That is Norfolk State and Appalachian State is your playing game for the 16s. I'm assuming you have Gonzaga.
Yes.
All right. So
Yep.
Instead of going game by game, Jared, how about you break it down the first round in your West region, starting you already said Gonzaga, so let's go with Oklahoma and Missouri.
Okay. In the second matchup between Oklahoma and Missouri, I have Oklahoma winning. Then the 5-12 matchup between Creighton and University of California, Santa Barbara, UCSB, I have Creighton winning. 4 verse 13 is Virginia, Ohio, and I have Virginia moving on. And then I have USC beating either Wichita State or Drake. They have to play this coming Friday, I believe. And then Kansas and Eastern Washington, I have Kansas winning. Oregon VCU, that was a flip-flop for me, but I ended up taking Oregon in it. And then Iowa versus Grand Canyon. I'm going to have to take Iowa there.
Surprised me because, Grand Canyon, man. Whew.
Yeah, I know Grand Canyon is a solid contender, but
that's I want to go back to that USC and Wichita Drake. I've kind of flip flopped too. What was your deciding factor in picking USC in that game?
The USC,
yes.
Really just looking at their overall seasons was the biggest factor. I didn't really see Wichita State or Drake being too much of a problem. It will be a good game, but I just see USC coming out on top.
Now that playing game Wichita and Drake, they do play on Thursday, the 18th.
Thursday, okay.
So this game USC, which versus either Wichita or Drake, will be on Saturday the 20th. So I guess really the discrepancies I have here is going to be the USC and Wichita and Drake, and it's hard for me because I live on the Midwest, so I'm not able to see all the West Coast games. So it's hard for me to kind of break down their tape and stuff like that. So I went Wichita and Drake, especially if Drake wins this game against Wichita State. I truly believe that Drake, with their size and their guard play, could definitely beat USC.
Okay.
It's just going to be a matter of, who wins that game. And, another kind of interesting thing is this. I don't know if anybody has noticed the past few years is when you play in those playing games, and usually, as long as you're not the 16 seed going against the number one, but those 11 seeds, they play a game. It's almost like a warm up before you get into the dance. So they're already firing on all cylinders. That's another reason why I'm picking this. It's not necessarily going to be there's going to be no home court. I mean, so in my eyes is you're playing that extra game to get into the tournament, but you're already warmed up for it. So
Th-
that's who I have. I have Wichita Drake beating USC. And another thing I kind of went back and forth on also, it was also the Oregon and BCU game. I got screwed with Oregon back in 2019, and they went on that run. So hopefully they don't screw me here because I picked them to win one game. So hopefully they don't screw me. So with that being said, looking at my bracket, and I don't know about yours, I don't have any, as you would kind of say, those sexy upsets. I mean, I have a few, but I
mhm.
don't have a lot. I think this is going to be a lot of your status quo games. If you have good guard play and you can rebound and shoot the rock and hit your free throws, you're probably more than likely you have a good shot if you're a lower seed. So with that being said, let's go over to the South region. And here we have Baylor as the number one seed on top, Ohio State on the 2 line. Then we have Arkansas on the 3 and Purdue on the 4. For this game, I have Baylor advancing along with Carolina over Wisconsin, which I think that'll be a very good 8 and 9 game. Typically, the 8th seed usually beats the 9th seed. Also, I know people are going to tell me, you've kind of gone back and forth. Villanova and Winthrop. Again, I've been saying for a month Villanova was going to be, my dark horse team to go to the Final Four and possibly win it. But with the injuries they had with Gillespie, they're and another star player that went down due to an ankle injury. I have Winthrop, and just kind of a real quick, just kind of a stat on Winthrop is they have very good guard play. They're averaging almost 80 points a game and only allowing 67. But the really one thing that kind of jumps out at me is this. They play 11 guys. They have a lot of depth. And if Villanova is turning over the ball like they've been doing in the past 4 games where they dropped 3 out of 4, Winthrop can come out, steal the ball, and they could definitely, they shoot very well from beyond the arc and they rebound. So that's what I have. I have Winthrop over Villanova. Then I have Purdue over North Texas, Texas Tech over Utah State, Arkansas over Colgate, and then I have Virginia Tech over Florida, and then I'll have Ohio State. So I have Baylor, Carolina, Winthrop, Purdue, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, and Ohio State. JR, who do you see getting out of the first round here in the South region?
I have Baylor and Carolina, same as you. Uh, and even though Villanova has struggled, I still see them as the better team. So I have them beating Winthrop, and then I have Purdue over North Texas, Texas Tech, Arkansas. I have Florida winning against Virginia Tech and Ohio State.
All right, so pretty much where we change is pretty much Florida over Virginia Tech and Winthrop. You already gave your analysis on Villanova and why. Tell me Florida over Virginia Tech. What was your process on that?
I really just compared resumes and uh, I just I see Florida being as the better team. Really, that's what it came down to when I looked at everything.
I will say this, and I'm really ACC. I'm biased to a point. I am a realist at the same time. I will say this: what's really different about their resumes is this, and again, this was kind of a toss up for me as well. But first top 25 opponents this year, Florida went 2 for 2. Virginia Tech went 4-0. And the biggest strength for the Hokies is going to be their front court. They are led by junior center Keve Aluma and I know they haven't played a lot because out of their last 8 games, they've been canceled due to COVID. I honestly just think that if Virginia Tech could play their game like I've seen them play, they can definitely beat Florida. But again, it's just a matter of anytime, any day, really. I mean, this is what this tournament's about. It's about guard play,
Yeah,
you know, who could shoot, who can make their free throws and rebound. But guard play is a big, big, big thing. I know, and someone said on ESPN, are we going to see, a sleeper, who has, one or two guards, that can go like what Kemba did and Shabazz did for UConn, and the analysis was, yeah, but they struggle, some teams struggle at other aspects, and Virginia Tech is going to be interesting. And again, the same thing with Villanova, which Jay Wright team is going to show up.
yeah,
So that's my biggest issue. But again, it's anytime, anywhere, and I guess and this is what I love about the tournament is if you don't bring your A game and some other team does and they catch you slipping, that's it. There's no next regular season game. There's no next week. It's just that's it. So with that being said, let's go to the Midwest region where Illinois resides as the number 1 seed over there, along with Houston, which was kind of surprising this year on the 2 line, along with West Virginia and Oklahoma State, led by Cade Cunningham. Real quick, JR, who do you have winning the first rounds in this region?
okay. The 1 versus 16 matchup, I have Illinois beating Drexel. I know, shocking. Uh,
Exactly.
the 8 and 9 game, I'm going to go with Loyola Chicago over Georgia Tech, mostly because I'm a closet Loyola Chicago fan after what they did last season.
Let's go.
Or 2 seasons ago. My bad. I forgot. We didn't have it last year. 5 versus 12 is Tennessee versus Oregon State. I have Tennessee beating them. Then 4 versus 13, I have Oklahoma State beating Liberty. 6 versus 11 is San Diego State and Syracuse. I have Syracuse with the upset. And then West Virginia beating Morehead State in the 3 versus 14. I have Clemson beating Rutgers, even though I'm a Big Ten guy. I just think Clemson's guards will outplay Rutgers. And then I have Houston beating Cleveland State.
Oh man, I got Cleveland State winning it all, man. Come on now.
Yeah, I know you do.
So I mean, very simple, straight to the point. I have the exact same thing. I think the one thing I am going to be most interested is that Rutgers and Clemson game. Clemson, they are a better defensive unit in the country, and they kind of attack you in all phases, kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they generate really good turnover volume, which is really big, especially for playing an experienced guard play. You could turn them over real quick and go for 2. Amir Sims, who I have been super, super big on ever since his freshman year at Clemson, he's the heart and soul of that team. So I think he's going to have a good game against Rutgers, undermined team. So with that being said, I do have Clemson in that. I also have Illinois. The one game I am really going to be paying attention to is Oklahoma State and Liberty. And the reason why I say this is the star and probably the number 1 pick in this year's draft class is going to be Cade Cunningham, who I have absolutely followed all year long and just love how he plays. He gets to the basket, has a good jump shot, can play defense. It's going to be curious to see what Liberty does if they draw double teams. But the one thing that I'm going to be interested is because Liberty, the past, besides last year, but the last few years, I've kind of come to the tournament. They can shoot the 3 and they can shoot free throws. And looking at where their ranking is, so they shoot 39% from 3 and about 78% from the free throw line, and that can help you win games. Now, the biggest thing is, and I'm not undermining, a lot of these small schools because they don't have like traditional big guys. My thing is you got to limit possessions, meaning If Oklahoma State comes down the floor, they miss a shot, you got to rebound. You don't want to give them any second chances because a second chance opportunity is a good time for a wide open three.
That's very true.
So they got to limit that. I still believe Oklahoma State, and it's funny because Oklahoma State could make a deep run because of Cunningham because he is that good. You know, we saw him play, you know, beat West Virginia a couple times. You know, we've seen them just beat these good teams, and I am just interested to see what's going to happen. And you know, Oklahoma State did beat Baylor once. They beat Arkansas, who's in the tournament. Beat Texas, beat Texas Tech, and they beat West Virginia twice and Oklahoma twice. And those teams are in the tournament. So this team is prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Just my thing is, what Big 12 tournament champion has gone deep? The only team that's really done it is Kansas.
Yeah.
So I know we had Iowa State win it a few times. You know, now we have Oklahoma State. I'm curious to see how deep this team can go. But everything revolves around Cunningham, and I feel like if he has a bad game, they might be in trouble. But we will wait and see. That is on the 19th. So I'll be tuning into that game as well. You know, I could go in my man room, you know, and kind of watch 2 games, you know, pull up my laptop, watch a 3rd game. So be curious to see how that region goes. I honestly think, you know, I'll kind of we'll do assumptions here after the first round here. So we got one more region to go and kind of, you know, see who has the hardest bracket. With that being said, let's go to the East region, you know, where Michigan resides on the 1 line. We got Bama on the 2. We got Texas on the 3 and Florida State on the 4. Mm-hmm. Here, I have Michigan. I have Michigan winning LSU. I have Georgetown over Colorado. Colorado has been slipping as of late. Georgetown has been hot. Everybody has been absolutely hot. There's no mistake that Patrick Ewing has this team playing on all cylinders. In the couple games that they've lost, late February, early March, it has only been a few points by really good teams. This team can play regardless how deep they can go. I think they're a one and done, but they can definitely beat Colorado. I have Florida State. I have BYU, I have Texas, and then I also have Maryland over Uconn. I haven't seen much of Uconn, but I know Uconn has been playing well. But I watched Maryland the Big Ten tournament, and I was kind of amazed on how well they played. And I think they could keep up, you know, at least a game and beat Uconn. And then I have Alabama. So with that being said, the floor is yours, JR. Who do you have winning in this region?
Okay, well, I have the team up north winning their matchup. I have LSU beating St. Bonaventure. I do have Colorado beating Georgetown. And then Florida State in their matchup. I have either MSU or UCLA beating BYU, depending on which team gets through in that 11 matchup. And then I have Texas. I did pick the favorite in Uconn over Maryland, and I did pick Bama.
All right, so before, you know, I kind of just throw some stuff out. You know, Barry, you know, is saying Oral Roberts is, you know, the sleeper over here, and you know, it's kind of funny. You know, I kind of agree with you, Barry. I think they could take out that Ohio State team. But with that being said, you know, what was your decision? You know, first and foremost, I'm kind of curious. Why did you choose Colorado over Georgetown?
I think they need the rest. With this time off, they're gonna rest, recover, and I think they'll come back stronger, even though they were slipping at the end of the season in Georgetown. They did have some very impressive wins. But I just see Colorado pulling it out.
All right, that's fair. And then also too, I'm kind of curious. You said Michigan State or UCLA over BYU. What was your kind of thought process on that?
That was just Big Ten bias, to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I guess watching Michigan State play and how they played in their opener against Maryland kind of turned me off against them. But last but not least, why UConn over Maryland?
Okay, so my Big Ten bias did not come into effect here. But no, I just UConn is one of those teams where it's more of the brand is why I picked them. They're typically a strong basketball school, and I just think when it comes to tournament time that they're able to pull out one or two wins usually. So I think they'll advance over Maryland.
And I think that's fair. It's again, and I haven't even watched UConn play ball in years, ever since their run with Shabazz Napier. With that being said, with Maryland, I just like what they see. They do shoot the three ball well. The only thing that makes me nervous is they don't really cause turnovers. And for me, that's kind of a big, kind of sway. But I chose Maryland more on their length and on the boards. They are pretty good, and when you beat Wisconsin and Illinois, I mean, to me, even though you're 16-13, I'm curious to see how UConn, because they usually do play small ball, meaning that their big guys aren't really that big.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see how they contain, Aaron Wiggins and Eric, and I'm gonna say his name wrong, Alea. So I'll be curious on that. So real quick before we go into round two, where do you think when you're looking at the bracket, which region do you think you say, I'm glad, this number one seed is going to have a hard time getting out?
Number one seed having a hard time getting out is going to be um it's a toss up for me between East and West, between Gonzaga and Michigan, only because Gonzaga, yes, they're undefeated, but I they don't look great as of late. I know they had did they have COVID issues? Yeah.
Yeah, they were out for 2 to 3 weeks, and I think that's why.
So they might have come back sluggish, and maybe that's why. And I might tunnel too much on that, but because they are still the number one seed and undefeated, I'm gonna say Michigan will have the hardest time because even after their win in the regular season over Ohio State, they struggled. They split the back-to-back against Michigan State, um, who, as we see, Michigan State is barely getting in as an 11 seed. They have to win a play-in game to even get into the tournament. So with the way they've been struggling, and Livers has that stress fracture. He might be done. Uh, that's that's a great guard that they're going to be missing now. I do have them uh, winning a game or two, but I don't see them getting out, and we'll go over that here shortly. But definitely the East, I would have to say, with Michigan would be the hardest for path for Michigan for a number one seed, I should say.
Yeah, and that's fair. And just real quick, and I thought this was kind of interesting too. Before I kind of get into mine, is Duke and Kentucky are not in the tournament, at the same time. You know, the last year that
That's
happened
all.
was back in '76. I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of interesting, and this is going to break the Blue Devil streak of 24 years of going to the tournament. So I think that's interesting. My pick, with the hardest region is going to be Michigan, solely based on Livers and the lack of big men they got, and I think they get to the Sweet 16, and if Florida State could get into there, I think that's where they're going to run into trouble. Florida State has a lot of length, on their defense, and they could throw multiple big guys at Dickinson, and I think Dickinson, he has gotten in foul trouble, in the Big Ten tournament, and I think that's going to be the difference. I think Michigan, another team, no one's really kind of talking about, would be Baylor, because Baylor didn't look all that good either. Baylor did not good. But again, it's the layoffs for not playing from COVID. I'm curious, if Carolina could get to that second round and kind of give Baylor kind of a struggle. because Carolina can match up with their front court. Backcourt, you got to hand it to Baylor because they have more. What's the word I'm looking for? They have a lot of juniors and seniors, a lot of upperclassmen. And Carolina, I know they have Leaky Black, but their really guard play is very inexperienced. So, but for me, it's going to be the East region for Michigan. With that being said, let's go back to the West. We got round 2. Can you say who's going to the Sweet 16?
I can. It doesn't mean you'll agree with me.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'll throw some chips at you, but that's besides the point.
I'll eat them. All right. So in my Gonzaga versus Oklahoma matchup, I have Gonzaga coming out on top. And then Creighton versus Virginia, I have Creighton, I guess, upsetting them seeding-wise and moving on. Then I have Kansas beating USC and Iowa beating Oregon.
Now, I will say this about Virginia. This was about 17 minutes ago. Tony Bennett, the coach for Virginia, says the team won't travel for NCAA tournament until Friday. So, in their first game is let me take a quick look. And Virginia plays Ohio, and their game isn't until Saturday. So, and I'm assuming it's not that far of a trip, but I thought that was kind of interesting because a lot of their players are quarantining still. And I know NCAA said you have to test, I believe it was either 5 or 7 times, but I'm pretty sure it was a week. Pretty positive it was a week is where you to test negative. So those guys have to test negative for a week. But Virginia is not traveling to Indianapolis until Friday. With that being said, I have Gonzaga. Enough said. Creighton. I like Creighton a lot over Virginia. Creighton is one of those dark horse teams, meaning their guard plays extremely, extremely well. They shoot free throws well. They shoot the 3 well. I think they will give Virginia trouble. Virginia really doesn't shoot the 3 that well. And their guard play, from what I've noticed from the end of the year, actually, I should say from the Duke game in mid-February all the way until when they lost in the ACC tournament, has been very, very sketchy. They don't shoot the 3 well. So I think Creighton goes there. Creighton has an experienced team as well. So I think that's going to be, a concern for Tony Bennett. Then in the next game, I did have Wichita and Drake over USC. So in this one, be Kansas and Wichita or Drake. And I have Kansas advancing, even though, they might be missing a few players. And then I have Iowa over Oregon. So, I mean, we have the same Sweet 16. I think, that Creighton and Virginia game, if we get that matchup, is kind of going to be unique in itself. It's going to be the style of play is, can Virginia turn over the Creighton guards? Mm-hmm. I know there's been a lot of stuff going on, with McDermott as coach. I'm not going to get into details with that. But it seems the players have responded and rallied behind him. I know McDermott, has apologized for what he's did, but I honestly think that that's not going to play into effect. So with that being said, let's go to the South region. Here I have Baylor over Carolina, and that's going to be a game that's going to be, I think, fun to watch if it happens. The front court style is very, very similar, so it's going to be on the guard plays for Carolina to keep them in the game. Then I have Purdue over Winthrop. I have Texas Tech over Arkansas. And the reason for that is Chris Beard's defense and that team he has is very, very good at causing turnovers. I know they're not a good offensive team, but when they made it to the national championship against Virginia, they were not a good offensive team either. I know they had a few guys. So I have Texas Tech over Arkansas, and then I have Ohio State over Virginia Tech. Who do you got?
All right. Well, looks like we're going to be 8 for 8 with each other. Because I have Baylor over UNC as well, even though that's, like you said, that's going to be an exciting game to watch. And then I have Purdue over Villanova, Texas Tech over Arkansas for the same reasons you said, and then OSU over Florida.
Yeah, the 2 games I will be watching is going to be Baylor and Carolina if it happens, and Texas Tech over Arkansas if that happens. And I think my main focus with Texas Tech and Arkansas is going to be this. Yes, Texas Tech is 3-8 against first top 25 teams compared to Arkansas's 2-2. It's just Chris Beard's defense, they can turn them over and they can rebound the ball exceptionally well. Arkansas, they were second rebounding about 40 rebounds per game here in the SEC. Arkansas can make a deep run as well. It's just going to be, I think defense is going to win this style. And I think Chris Beard is going to have his team ready to go. And Mac McClung, who is their go-to store, and you really need a go-to store, and that's why I'm so high on Cade Cunningham. Curious to see what happens here. Arkansas can easily win this game, but I'm going to go with Texas Tech, with their length and their defense. So let's go to the Midwest region. Who do you have going to the Sweet 16 over here?
Okay. So in my Illinois Loyola Chicago matchup, I have Illinois moving on. Even though I would love to see Loyola upset Illinois, it would be awesome. And then I have Oklahoma State over Tennessee. I just think Cade Cunningham will put the team on his back and carry them through. Then I have West Virginia beating Syracuse. And then I have Houston beating Clemson.
Yep, I have the same thing down here. The one game I'm going to circle is Tennessee and Oklahoma State, because which Tennessee team are we going to see?
Yes.
Are we going to see the Tennessee team who can obviously play with almost anybody in the country, probably outside of Gonzaga, Baylor, and maybe Illinois? Or are we going to see the Tennessee team, who was up double digits against, who was it, Arkansas or Alabama? I believe it was Alabama, actually. And they squandered a double-digit lead. I don't know which team we're going to see, but from what I've seen from Oklahoma State, I have seen enough to where they could get to the Sweet 16 Elite 8. I just don't know which Tennessee team's going to show up. And Tennessee boned me a few years ago, by the way. I had them winning the national championship when they were ranked number 1 all year long, and they boned me. So they better not bone me again, is all I'm going to say, JR. Okay, so that's one game I will be looking to see. And then obviously we have Houston over Clemson. I just think Houston's guard play is just going to take over that game. The speed that they got down there is absolutely magnificent, and you're going to need a defensive team to kind of slow them down and create turnovers. I don't think I don't think Clemson has that.
No.
So I have Houston over there. So pretty much the same across the board. And then we go over here to the East region. I have Michigan over LSU. I have Florida State over Georgetown. I have Tejas over BYU. Then I have Bama over Maryland. Again, not really sexy picks over here. I mean, kind of straightforward. JR, who do you have advanced to the Sweet 16 here?
Well, looks like we have the same Sweet 16, buddy. I picked the same exact teams. I picked the team up north, Florida State over Colorado. I just think Florida State has better guard play, and they have big men that they can rely on too, especially on the defensive end. I have Tejas over Michigan State, and I have Bama over Uconn.
Now, when we say Tejas, everybody, we really mean Texas. That's an inside joke with one of our good friends, Matt. So, Tejas it is.
Yes.
Again, not very sexy upsets here. I mean, kind of straight to the point. I think here, Florida State and Georgetown, I think this is where Florida State's going to, use their muscle, meaning that, they're going to use their physicality over Georgetown and their smaller guys. And that's really about it. I'm curious to see LSU and Michigan just because
that's gonna be
of the guard play.
Yeah.
LSU likes to get out and run and shoot the three, and Michigan's more of a balance, kind of let's get into the half court set, but they don't make no mistake. They can definitely go out and run too. So almost two different styles of play in that game. So with that being said, let's go to back to the West region and let's go. Who goes to the Elite Eight here in your first matchup between Gonzaga and Creighton?
Uh, at first, I had Creighton with the upset, but I do think Gonzaga is going to move on to the Elite Eight. Um, it's going to be a good game. Creighton is very experienced. They have the uh, they have the tournament experience too. They always seem to make a solid run in the tournament. But I think with the first couple games under Gonzaga's belt, if they do uh, make it to the Sweet 16 and this matchup happens, I think those two games will help them recover from their little struggles near the end of the season. So yes, I have Gonzaga moving on to the Elite Eight, and then I have Iowa beating Kansas. Uh, as much as I dislike Iowa, uh, yeah, I'm gonna pick them uh, with Bohannon and Wieskamp, um, and then of course Garza, who is up for the Wooden Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean Gonzaga and Creighton. It's going to be almost the same styles. I mean Gonzaga has really good guard play. They have seniors. They have a sophomore in Timmy, and then freshman Jalen Suggs, who curious to see if he comes back or not. He's been exceptional. Creighton has, like I've been saying, can shoot extremely well. Filled with upperclassmen. I all of them score in double figures. Curious to see, how Creighton handles their size because it's going to be a different team with Gonzaga, over Virginia. Even though Virginia does have Huff, I'm leaning towards Gonzaga in this one due to the fact of their size. So I have Gonzaga as well. And then also here, this is going to be as we get closer to, to the Sweet 16, I have Kansas over Iowa. And the only reason why I'm going to say is this. I have seen Kansas play extremely well this last month and a half. They have COVID issues, which kind of makes me a little nervous to say this. And I don't know which three guys that are not playing, but if they could get to this point, those three guys can definitely test negative and they come to the team. I think Kansas, the way their guard play is and their front court and how they've been playing, I don't see why they can't slow down, Bohannon and Garza and those guys. I'm picking Kansas over Iowa. I don't think Iowa's style, shoot up the three, jack up the three, let me throw a three from half court, is going to win this. Not saying Iowa does that, but I don't think Iowa style can win that tournament or even this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they could be Gonzaga like that either. I have Kansas over Iowa. So I have a Zaga versus Kansas Elite Eight. JR here has Gonzaga versus Iowa. Moving to the South region, I have Baylor over Purdue. I really do. I know Purdue has a couple bigs who I like, and the guard play has been getting better. They're just inexperienced for me up front. So I have Baylor and Texas Tech and Ohio State. I went back and forth on this. I don't know. Is his name Kyle Guy? Kyle.
Young.
Who's the Ohio State player that went with it? Young. Okay, so I'm expecting he'll be back, and that's why I'm picking Ohio State. But Texas Tech can defend Ohio State's perimeter. Can they stop Liddell? I don't know. And I think that would be the key difference. So I'm taking the Buckeyes over Texas Tech. Who do you have over here?
I do have the same. I have Baylor over Purdue, even though I could see Purdue pulling out the upset. Um, and then Ohio State over Texas Tech for similar reasons. But I just think as long as we play smart on offense and sturdy defense, I think we can outplay Texas Tech and move on.
I'm going to be curious to see with Ohio State is which Washington shows up in that game if that happens. We're going to see the Washington who apparently likes to force shots and either hits the rim or really just you're kind of scratch your head like, why are you taking that shot?
Mm-hmm.
You know, which Liddell, I think Liddell looked kind of tired in today's game. He looked really short on his threes. He was
His
very
teeth were
flat-footed.
flat. Yep.
He was definitely flat-footed on a lot of his shots. You know, it could be, you know, because they played, you know, all these games in a row. I do have Ohio State, but that's going to be one team that I'm going against Texas Tech, against that length, or even against Arkansas, who could play at a face pace too, how they handled that. But I have Ohio State making to the Elite Eight, even though, you know, the last four regular season games they did struggle, even though the last game against Illinois, even though they lost, they showed that, you know, like, hey, we're okay. And it showed in the Big Ten, you know, even though, you know, they were down 17 points to the Illini today and they came back. So, and again, that was all Washington. Washington was the catalyst for that. So which Washington's going to show up in this tournament? I have no idea. With that being said, let's go to the Midwest region. I was going to switch it up, but I'll kind of keep it consistent here. Midwest region, Illinois, Oklahoma State. Who do you have, JR, going to the Elite Eight?
This one I went back and forth on too because of Cade Cunningham and his ability to just dictate the pace of the game. But that Io Dosunmu
Yep.
from Illinois, and also the announcers say Coburn or Coburn for Illinois, the big man. His name is spelled differently than those pronunciations, but either way, um, I think when I looked up Oklahoma State, their big man was like 6'9", and I know guard play is really important, but if Illinois is able to slow down Cade Cunningham even a little bit, and they have to throw the ball in the post, Illinois has the advantage.
I agree. I agree with that.
And so I took Illinois over Oklahoma State for that reason.
Okay.
Um, and then West Virginia and Houston was another tough one. I mean, it's 2 versus 3. Both had solid seasons. Houston, just they weren't consistent enough for me, so I took West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, that Illinois Oklahoma State game, I think what's going to dictate that game is if AO is on Cade. You know, AO plays excellent defense. Also, too, who doesn't get enough credit is going to be Andre Curbelo, who is a freshman, and he has played really well, you know, these past month and a half. Freshman, he is very good. And
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the difference, too. And Illinois shoots the three really well, too. No one really gives them credit because, I mean, all you really see is, you know, them going into the paint, making layups and all that other stuff and throwing inside of Kofi. They are a good three-point shooting team, and I think that's going to be the difference as well. You know, they're probably going to soften up Oklahoma State's inside and play inside out. That's what I would do. That would be my game plan for this. Go inside out, you know, have them double team, and then you can move the ball around from wing to wing. So that would be my game plan for that. But I have Illinois over Oklahoma State, and I have West Virginia. Surely, and West Virginia has burned me in the past when they've had really good teams. I just think Bob Huggins has this team, and I watched a few games where they were down double digits, and they have come back and won the game. And double digits, I mean, they're down 15 to 20 points, and they've come back and won. You know,
Yeah.
they did against Texas, and the other game, I believe it was I really want to say it was against Texas Tech too. I could be wrong, but they have come back against double digits and won. My main thing is going to be, can you turn over Houston's guards? That for me is going to be the thing. Huggins really prides himself on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Can they do that? Houston really for me, they haven't played anybody. They beat Texas Tech by 11, but that was earlier in the year, and Texas Tech was still fighting their identity because on the offense end they struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Wichita State and they lost to Wichita. They beat Boise by 10 and Memphis by 3. Again, I know when they did the non-conference, they kind of had to do things different because of COVID. And if you beat someone earlier in the year, that does not necessarily mean you're going to beat them now because either, each team could go there, go on the opposite end of the spectrum. Curious to see how this game does turn out, though.
Yeah.
So, but I think West Virginia and the Big 12 in itself is such a grind. I think if they get to this point, I think they could use that as bulletin board and kind of say, hey, like, we were down, let's play West Virginia basketball, and I think that can propel them over Houston. But I think that game's going to be good too. And
Yeah.
usually when you get to the Sweet 16 is when the games get really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So last but not least, we got the East region. I got Florida State over Michigan, especially if Livers is out. Florida State could throw multiple bodies at Dickinson, and the same thing with their point guard. I believe his last name is Smith. I think Florida State's size is going to dictate this game. They could turn they could definitely turn Michigan over. I just think, and we kind of talked about this during the Ohio State game too a little bit, is when you lose a player like Livers, he averages over 13 points, but what he does is he plays defense. He can shoot the three, especially when Smith is breaking down the defense. He usually finds Livers in the corner. Losing a guy like that, it's hard to input somebody else this late in the year because one, practices are shorter, and then especially something that happened in the Big Ten in the Big Ten tournament, they lost Livers and then didn't play against Ohio State. And yes, they lost by 1, but Ohio State really let them back in the final 3-4 minutes.
Yep.
So I think the loss of Livers is going to really show here in this Florida State game. I have Florida State over Michigan. And then as you saw, I'm still going back and forth on this. I am high on Texas. I am really, really high. But what I saw from Bama today is one, those boys could shoot the three. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And two is they can also rebound. They can also rebound and cause turnovers. And that's what this tournament is about. Can your guards play better than their other guards? And also too, for a lot of people that don't know about Alabama, because I don't know about this too, because I have hardly watched any Crimson Tide basketball. This is the first game I watched. I watched 3 Texas games. Bama brings an elite defense. They led the SEC in rebounds and steals, and they also could shoot the three. And they have 4 players that average in double figures. That's going to be the difference of the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, who do you got here in the Michigan and Florida State game?
I do have Florida State beating Michigan as well. Pretty much the same reasons you said. Mostly, if Livers is out, that puts Michigan at a disadvantage right there. And not to mention how Florida State does have the bodies that can go up against Dickinson and make him, possibly cause him to be a non-factor. And if he's a non-factor and they're relying on a backup and Smith, it's probably not going to go too well for them.
And I'm super high on Smith. I mean,
yeah, he's a very good player. His ball handling, the way he can just go in and out of a defense, and he reminds me, I don't want to say of Kyrie, because Kyrie has way better ball handling. He's also in the NBA and has had more experience, but he's heading in that direction to have the same ball handling ability. I've seen him cross multiple people over this season. But he's still young, so we'll see how he develops. But yeah, I think Florida State just has too much of an advantage in this game. And then Texas and Bama.
Yep, this was a toss up.
Yeah,
It still is a toss-up for me.
I I took Texas. Um, it was a tough one because of what I saw from Bama today when we watched the SEC championship. But I think Texas probably either watched the game or will watch film on that game because of how well Bama played. That would be a great game to study film from and see how they were running their offense to get those 3-point shots because I mean they were hitting just about everything. Like there were a few where they probably could have made one more pass and had a better three opportunity, but even the shot that they took was near the basket. Like none of their shots were very bad shots. And also, like you said, the rebounding. They had, I think, 20 rebounds in 13 minutes.
It was, I
I think,
believe, it was around the seven. It was right before the 7-minute mark because I made a comment. I remember
yeah,
making a comment because you're like, "Oh, it's 13 minutes." I said, "No, it's 12 minutes and 54 seconds, Jared."
yeah.
So, and they doubled
Yeah, it was 20 to 10.
LSU.
It was 20 to 10 in the rebounding category. And I think they had, when they got their 21st rebound, I think it was their 10th offensive rebound.
Yep.
So those second chance opportunities will benefit them very much, especially if Texas collapses on the hoop and they don't get the rebound and Alabama just grabs it and kicks it out. They're going to have two wide open threes. Uh, but I did take Texas. I think they're gonna clamp down on Bama and they're gonna try to dictate the pace of the game.
Which I think is what's going to happen too. I'm just inspires in that Bama Texas because Texas does have a lot of length.
Yeah,
I'm just more optimistic from what I saw from Bama is what I'm going to see in this tournament. And this is for anyone that knows, this is if you don't bring your A game, you're going home.
yep,
I don't care who you play, especially these smaller schools are chomping at a bit because all we hear, you're a mid major, you don't belong, whatever. These guys are going to be chomping at a bit, so got to bring your game. So you have Texas, so you have Florida State and Texas in your Elite Eight here in the East. Let's go to the West. Who is in the first spot here in your Final Four?
I hate to say it, but I do have Iowa knocking out Gonzaga. Uh, no reasons other than uh, even with Iowa's guards probably not being as good as Gonzaga's, and I know the tournament is about guard play. I think Iowa with Garza will have the advantage and win and move on to the Final Four.
Yeah, here I have Gonzaga. Yeah, I am going in. I think that, and I've been hearing a lot of ESPN chatter saying that they're the team of destiny. You
Yeah.
know, you know, 26-0. Can they finally go undefeated and win the tournament? I have Gonzaga over Kansas. I just think veteran leadership on there. I think Mark Few. This is probably Mark Few's best team, and that's saying something because a few years ago they had Rui Archimara, and the same thing with Brandon Clark. Curious to see because the style of play is going to be interesting. Meaning Iowa wants to run and shoot the three,
Mhm.
and Gonzaga is more of we'll run with you, but can you keep up with our guards who are also physical? Luca Garza in the games that they have lost is non-existent.
Mhm.
And I think Mark Few is going to have a game plan for that. If they do play Iowa, and the same thing with Kansas, is Kansas is really young on both, the front court, the back court. I think Mark Few will have Gonzaga, his boys, after had that layoff, and they're playing a good Creighton team. I think they'll finally figure it out. So I have Gonzaga over here. And then let's go back to the East region because either Iowa or Gonzaga would have to play this region in the Final
Yes.
Four. So my last spot is I have Bama beating Florida State and them going to the Final Four guard play. And they play fast. They play extremely, extremely fast. And I don't know if Florida State can handle that. We saw them play against Georgia Tech,
Yes.
and Georgia Tech was ripping the ball and then just playing quick. And I don't know if Florida State can maintain that. Granted, I honestly think Florida State kind of looked down on Georgia Tech like I did. I thought Florida State was going to roll over Georgia Tech. And for anybody that, isn't on Twitter, ever since Duke started that Tuesday, I was making picks.
Yes.
So, and I know the championship games I got wrong. That was only days from Tuesday to Saturday and Sunday. Those were only 2 games, and if Florida State's going to win this game, they're going to have to use their big guys because Bama isn't really as tall, but they are very efficient, getting rebounds from what we saw. But I got Bama over Florida State, and I have them in the Final Four.
Okay. I took Florida State over Texas.
Okay.
Nothing really any different from why I've taken Florida State over every other team is from even though they looked like they struggled against Georgia Tech, I do think that they may have, I don't want to say underestimated them, but maybe not like expected that type of play from Georgia Tech. As far as the pressure they put on defense and how fast they were pushing the ball. But I think Florida State will beat Texas and move on to the Final Four.
All right, so just a recap real quick. I have Gonzaga versus Bama.
And
go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry.
I have Iowa and Florida State.
All right, now let's move on to the right side.
Yep.
Baylor, Ohio State. We both got them in the Elite Eight. Jared's beloved Buckeyes. What do you got?
I hate it. I'm picking Baylor to be right, hopefully, in this bracket. Even though I would love Ohio State to win, it would be awesome as an Ohio State fan. But I think Baylor will be the better team. Ohio State, like you said, Liddell looked flat and tired today, and that was after playing 3 days in a row. The tournament isn't much different. You're usually only having 1 day off.
Mm-hmm.
And if he struggles, CJ Walker, even though he's a senior and he's a very good guard, he doesn't shoot as well as I would like. He does have his moments where he scores when he gets the ball. And then Dwayne Washington, I don't know if he can do it all by himself. Like today he scored 34 points, 30-some points, career high, and we still lost due to the deficit we acquired at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, where they started 1 for 13.
Yes. If we had not started 1 for 13, I don't think that game would have even gone into overtime with the way we were playing. So I have Baylor over Ohio State going to the Final Four.
All right, and the same thing for Baylor, but my reasoning is going to be just a smidge different. And like you said, they do get a day in between the games, and I think that's going to be beneficial for a lot of these players. They have more time to recover. So with that being said, Baylor's physical, and the team that probably faces them as physicality wise is is Michigan and probably Illinois, but Baylor is just a rugged, their front court, their back court, and a few of their bench guys are just rugged players, and they defend at a really high level. It's almost like you can't breathe type situation is where that's how suffocating they are. That's where I see Baylor winning this game.
Okay.
Just their style of play, just the way they play. They play great defense. They're not a great jump shooting team, but when you're creating turnovers and having fast break opportunities, you really don't need to shoot the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So I have Baylor, and in the Midwest region, I have Illinois. I'm super high in Illinois. AO came back from his facial, and he's wearing. I call him Batman because he's wearing that black mask. But he came back the last 4 regular season games. They went 3 out of 4. And they hummed. I know, granted, they kind of slipped up with the 17-point lead, but when you get to these conference tournament games, you're playing a team probably at least probably 2 or 3 times. So you're very familiar on the style of play. So I wasn't too surprised that Ohio State came back, but Illinois is my other Final Four team.
And I do have Illinois over West Virginia. Moving on to the Final Four. So, yeah, I have Iowa versus FSU and Baylor versus Illinois as my Final Four.
All right, so, and I have Zaga and Bama versus, and then we got Baylor and Illinois for me. With that being said, let's kind of get through this final part. And thank you, everybody who is tuning in or, will be watching our episode tonight. So this is the first time that we're doing this. We have been talking about doing this a couple more times. And then we also might do this, depending really how tired we are, after the first round of the NFL draft, which will happen next month. But again, thank you for tuning in tonight. We have seen a few comments, kind of have made us chuckle a little bit.
Yeah.
So with that being said, JR, how about you do the honors of telling us who is going to your championship game, starting with Baylor versus Illinois?
Oh, Baylor versus Illinois first? Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, I have Illinois beating Baylor. I just feel like Illinois can match up with Baylor, and Dosunmu has been off the charts since he came back. It's like he never lost a step almost. Like I think he missed a couple shots here and there, but I think that was more of the defensive pressure on him. But yeah, I have Illinois beating Baylor, and then I have Florida State beating Iowa. That was more of a coin toss. I just flipped a coin and just went with what I said I would, and it was Florida State. So I picked Florida State there. And do we just want to go through to the national champion?
Yeah. Let's do that. So you did your Final Four. So you have Florida State and Illinois in your championship. Who is your 2021 national championship?
I have Illinois representing the Big Ten, bringing it home.
All right, and I know in ESPN they kind of make you do a score. Is there a score? Is there a score that you have in mind? What would be the final score?
Give me 1 second. I have it right here.
Yeah, no, I kind of put you on the spot, but
yeah, I was not ready. This bracket, yeah. I've already made 4.
Oh my god!
On ESPN, 2 of them were just random autofills that I just. I have Illinois winning 76-70.
76-70. Okay, and JR has Illinois as his national championship. Now, going into mine, I will kind of, I'll do opposite what you did because I had you choose between Baylor and Illinois. So I'll go Gonzaga and Bama. I had Gonzaga going into the national championship game over Bama just strictly because, and this is going to be, I think, it's going to be a pretty close game, especially if Bama could hit the threes like they were doing today.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Alabama. They live and die by the 3. But I just feel like the way they play and the way they're coached by Nate Oates, for whoever, kind of, I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, who the heck is this guy? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, I think he coached for Buffalo when Buffalo made their run. And when I looked it up, he was the Buffalo coach.
Mm-hmm.
So very well coached. But I think Mark Few, again, this is his best team he's ever had. And I think they get to the championship game. Then I have Illinois and Baylor, same reason. I think this is going to be a rugged game, probably high 50s, low 60 type of game. And I think the difference is going to be it's not going to be so much, of Kofi or Ao. It's going to be the other guard play for Illinois that's going to step up and win that game. They shoot a good chunk of three. The only thing that scares me about Illinois is their free throw percentage. Not very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
But I got Illinois in the championship against Gonzaga, and I have Illinois winning as well. I have them winning 72-67.
Okay.
Illinois for me is a team that's playing at the right time, right place. I think they really figured themselves out. And I watched them play against Duke in early December, and I was just extremely, extremely impressed because it felt like today too, watching Ohio State. It felt like anytime either Duke or Ohio State got close to Illinois, they would make a run. They would make a quick 5-0 run or a 6-0 run. And I was just like, okay, so they could respond well. Gonzaga hasn't. I know they played against Kansas. I know Gonzaga has played against good schools. But when you're playing in the WAC and not really in a good conference, and they played Iowa early, Kansas early, Virginia early, and then they beat West Virginia. Illinois has been battle tested throughout the whole year, and I think that's what's going to happen. So I have Illinois winning as well. So really, the only thing we had difference was our first round games typically.
Yes.
So I'm excited to watch these games. Really don't watch the playing games, but I'm going to have to watch them just because I was cheated last year. So I will be for sure watching or trying to watch, because I know they have different channels and everything, but watching every single game. This is my favorite time of the year. I am absolutely stoked. I know baseball season is here, and I know we have been talking to Matt again about coming on, coming back, and we'll probably talk about Indians baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, and it's probably too, because I mean, with the Indians and who they signed and what they didn't do, I guess, is basketball for me has been, I've been playing since I was 5 years old. It feels like every year, it gets better. It gets better, and we were gypped last year, so I'm excited. I really am excited. So, is there any thoughts when you look at the bracket? Not even your picks. How are you feeling? We didn't have this last year, like I said. So, how are you feeling this year?
I'm excited. I can't wait. It's an exciting time, like you said, because of COVID. The NCAA didn't know how to prepare or anything, so like everything just got canceled and thrown out the window. There were players that didn't get to play in a tournament, and I'm just really excited. Like you said, with the playing games, I am going to pay attention to the Michigan State and UCLA game mostly. But being in North Carolina now, I am going to watch Appalachian State and Norfolk State. So yeah, I'm excited. That's really my only adjective I can use right now.
And as a Duke fan, I am just I'm sitting on the couch. This is the first time in 24 years. So I was 6 years old. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It kind of gives me more of an appreciation on this, and how special in a way is, I've been very, very, I guess blessed in a way with all the recruits that Coach Gay has brought in over the years. So for me to kind of not watch Duke play, it's bittersweet, but it's also kind of cool that like some of the blue bloods aren't in the tournament.
Yeah.
Kentucky's not in it. I mean, Duke's not in it. I mean, Carolina's seeding, is a lot lower than, usual. I think this is going to be fun. We're going to see a lot of new teams in here, kind of showcase their names. So for me, this is going to be a special year, because last year we didn't have it. But I guess the question is going to be, can Gonzaga go undefeated? Are we going to see an undefeated season? Because Kentucky back in 2015 undefeated till they played Wisconsin in the Final Four semifinal game, and they lost.
Yeah.
That was the closest that we've had that I could possibly remember. So, with that being said, I mean, let's get into March, man. Let the madness, commence. I
Yes,
mean, I
sir.
know we had some conference games there, but this is really it. We're gonna see. We're actually going to see March Madness, people. I'm excited.
Yeah,
So excited.
I can't wait.
So now I know what Jared and I can talk, and we will more than likely talk about college hoops. We will probably talk a couple camp games, but this is really going to be about the tournament, talking camp. So Jared, is there anything that you want to say before we sign off for tonight?
No. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. We will. Oh, we lost Aaron. It looks like. Um, Let me see if I can get him back real quick. Uh, let's go here. This is unfortunate. Hang on. No, I'm sending another invite, buddy. Okay. Messenger. Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties, everyone. But as I was saying before we got cut off, thank you for everyone that tuned in, whether you tuned in and stayed for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever, the whole time. We appreciate it. It's going to be a video on our page. I am going to try to upload it to YouTube. We've tried in the past and we had some technical difficulties with that. I'm hoping because this is an actual video that it'll just be simpler to upload, uh, post it to YouTube, and then we will share the YouTube video on our Twitter and Facebook page as well, to start expanding to there. Hopefully, like Aaron said, when I come back next month, I was also thinking maybe we go live during the draft and do a live reaction to each pick. That's up to our memory. we, yeah, Yeah, and we can do this from North Carolina because all I have to do is send you a request. So, so we can do this more often. Yeah, and if you want in on the bracket, send me or him a message. Uh, 20 $20.
So other so right. So that yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm good. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. This was fun. Hopefully we get to do it more.
But this will pretty much what we'll let's that so again along um,
Tuesday, yes. Yes. Yeah.
so
Yep. Have a good night, everyone.